I have to give a big shout out to Aaron the plumber because I have never seen somebody make fighting look this positive. I've been a very anti-violent type of person. I ain't never been in a fight. Only physical confrontation I've had is when I was in kindergarten. I was getting bullied and a dude pushed me in a seat on the bus and I kicked him in the face and he didn't bother me anymore. Seeing Aaron the plumber is making me think deeper about my mentality on violence and just our problem solving skills as men. A lot of people have been seeing the fights and they think this guy is just crazy and he just wants to fight and he want to run the fade and he ain't got no intelligence. I used to think that way. I used to think that men who resort to violence are just not that smart because instead of solving an issue through words or just having a confrontation of words, they want to resort to violence, I guess, because they're not smart enough. And I had to really think and challenge that thought process. You ever heard somebody say, "Oh, them fighting words"? Like when you're expressing yourself from a real place and you're not being careful with your words, sometimes you say things that would warrant you getting slapped. I'm pretty sure I've said plenty of shit in my life that I should have been slapped for and I wasn't. I've had the threat of possible violence come at me and I remember the feeling of that and how afraid I was of where it would go. I had a legit fear in me as a man that, oh my God, somebody wants to inflict pain on me or harm on me. What am I going to do? How am I going to handle myself as a man in front of this other man who doesn't feel the best toward me? You know what I mean? It's these thoughts. In that moment, I realized that I was a boy in that situation. I wasn't a boy because I didn't want to fight. I was a boy because I was afraid of the confrontation with another man and where that might lead. Showing respect is a quality of manhood. You have to respect other men. I love the message that Aaron the plumber is pushing. We glorify the hood life and the gang life, and a lot of young boys look up to men who are aggressive, who are not afraid of violence. And unfortunately, we see a lot of young men perpetuating gun violence. I just love that Aaron the plumber is finding a way to be himself in front of the world. He wasn't trying to be famous, and I respect that. It's the first time in my life I can say somebody who is pushing violence is actually pushing a positive message. And I would have never thought I would get to that point as a man. I was so anti violence. I was on my Martin Luther King Jr. energy. I felt like a world with violence could never be peaceful. But as I've grown, I'm actually more in tune with the yin yang energy. It's always light and dark. You're never going to have positive without negative. And confrontation is a very vital part of life. Violence is necessary. It's through violence that things are created. Friction, clashing, forces have to meet sometimes. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see two men fight and then hug afterwards. You're getting the two extremes of human interaction without anyone dying. I think it's beautiful that we're seeing a man push running the fade and making it cool because there's kids watching these videos that probably have issues with another man their age or another boy their age, however old they are. It's very common for people to get into these altercations or beefs with one another. I used to expect everyone to be able to articulate themselves in a way where they can communicate to somebody how they feel, hear the other side, and if there's no common ground, at least reach a point where y'all can just stay out of each other's way. That's how I've always handled confrontation. I either am cool with you, we have respect for one another. If we don't, we go our separate ways. But there's something really beautiful about not walking away from a person. There's something really dope about two people that want to connect, can't find a common ground through words. So the next step they take is, okay, well, we need to fight then. And I've heard this a lot where people that get into fights with each other, they gain more of a respect for each other. Violence doesn't always mean you have an enemy, but a lot of our young boys are afraid of fighting, afraid of being punched. If you've never been punched in the face, you've never been in a fight, there's a fear attached to that. You don't want to get into a scuffle. It's the fear of getting hurt, getting beat up. Now you got the embarrassment of social media because people are constantly recording fights. So instead of getting beat up on camera, no, we're gonna pull the gun out and we're gonna get to shooting. And that's just not an honorable way to move. So we definitely need to normalize this energy that Aaron the Plumber is pushing out. I saw an interview of his and I really caught his perspective on life and how he views manhood. And he has a very, very solid perspective on things. And I think the longer he shows up, people are really going to start to love this guy. And he's going to help a lot of people. We got to work on our anger. It's a lot of young people walking around with anger in them. And it has nothing to do with the people they beefing with. It's usually has something to do with their home life, their family life, the trauma that they are experiencing as a young person. And they have all these negative emotions in them that they don't know what to do with. They lash out, they harm people, they kill people. And that's not the correct way to deal with your trauma. And I'm not saying fighting is the cure to your trauma because there are people out here that just get into fights for no reason. I'm never going to be an advocate for senseless violence. You know, it's a difference. I don't want a bunch of fighting and a bunch of people just getting into it for no reason because that doesn't make you a man either. You don't have to fight another man to be a man, but you have to learn how to confront. And that took me a long time to learn that due to not ever being a confrontational person, being likable. I used to think I was less of a man because I had never been in a fight. I don't have that aggressive energy in the presence of other men. More of a passive person where I avoid confrontation. But I've learned that there are times in life where you cannot avoid confrontation. You are going to have to tell somebody something that they don't want to hear. And however you word that, they might take it a certain way. And it's up to you to know how to handle that interaction. I'm always going to be anti-violence. I'm not going to ever push to fight people because that's just not my spirit. But I'm also not going to look at people like Aaron the Plumber and more violent minded people as bad people because they're not. And I'm looking at it as it is a style of problem solving. And in a situation where words are not enough, sometimes you do got to run that fade in a real motherfucking way. In a real way, bro. I fuck with the shit, man. It's a solid message. It's undeniably solid. And I would much prefer that message to get pushed than the message of who's got the biggest gun and who can shoot. No. And I just want to say, I see these videos, and this is great timing, by the way, because the same time Aaron the Plumber is going viral for his fights online and him pushing the fade and all this energy of him fighting people is going viral at the same time as all these cases. You got the Mo3 case with Yellow Beezy where someone was murdered. Both of those dudes were shot in that altercation that they had between each other. Not too long ago, we saw the Young Dolph trial, and you see the videos. They're releasing the actual footage of the shooters, and there's videos of shooters all over the internet where you can see people that aren't even famous, just surveillance footage of people getting shot, homicides caught on camera. And one thing I noticed when I look at all these videos of people who are shooting people, why is it that the person with the gun always looks afraid? I've never seen a video where the shooter is calm. They walking around, they got the gun like this, they scurry, his feet scattering around. It's nervous energy. It's nervous fucking energy. And I'm like, how do you have a weapon that can end somebody's life in an instant, but still you're afraid? And that says a lot about the spirit of our young men. Ain't nothing hard about it. There's nothing hard about walking around with a gun and shooting somebody. And then you go a little deeper and you say, okay, the people that's doing the shootings, okay, that's one thing. But then you got the other element of people who can't solve their own problems and they hire other people to go shoot somebody that they have a problem with. That's soft. And Aaron the Plumber talked about that in an interview. And I'm so glad he did that because I've talked about this and it needs to be talked about on a wider scale. This culture of putting out hits, that's the softest shit you could do as a man. That you have such a problem with another man and you're so scared to face them that you would rather just hire somebody else to get rid of them because this man's presence bothers you that much that you feel like you can't even be fully you. You can't live your life with this threat. You can't face your enemy or face this threat on your own. So you have to go hire somebody else to handle your problem. That's not manhood. And I've always had a problem with that. So I want to thank Aaron the plumber for talking about that too, because that needs to be talked about a lot more. You got celebrities that do this. We've seen very famous figures get killed, and a lot of these murders are hits. They're planned hits. And I'm like, that's the most cowardly thing you could do. Look your enemy in the eye. And it ain't got to lead to a fight. But if it does, fight. If you look at the world itself, just the entire world is at war. You got countries shooting and dropping bombs on other countries, and these politicians are pressing the button. And you got the military that has nothing to do with these relationships that these politicians have with one another and their mission to conquer this and conquer that and get this and get that. So what do? They send off the military to fight their war because they have a problem or an agenda that they can't do themselves. So they need help. They need the physical force that they're not willing to go do. I have a problem with people that don't handle their own issues. If we can raise a generation of kids to understand that and continue to push that message, we'll be in a way better world. I even noticed lately that I'm getting comfortable with confronting people, even on the internet. People are afraid of confrontation on the internet. Like, I'll say something that I know is in opposition to what somebody said on the internet. It's like everybody's on edge. People are so afraid of the confrontation. And in their mind, they think everybody's out to go to war with them or cause them harm. We got to do better with that. We have to be more comfortable confronting. Be able to process what somebody says, even if it made you feel a way. Assess what they said, figure out the intent behind what they said. And if the intent is to disrespect or to personally attack you, then you could take that however you want to, wherever you want to take that. Because, like I said, some people's intentions and their words would lead to them being hurt or beat up or slapped. And they need to stand on whatever it is that they said. And if it leads to a fight, then, you have to accept the accountability for what you said that led the situation to become violent. That's why I know I'm never looking to be violent with anybody. So I have found a way to be honest with people in my confrontations. I make sure I'm saying exactly what I want to say, but I'm also relaying the message in a way where the person understands I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just being real with you. If you respond in a way where you're hurt, I still assess what the person says and I don't take it to 1,000. Manhood isn't just going from 0 to 1,000. I had the mentality that, a lot of young boys and men that are on this alpha energy, and say you got to be real big and bad and you got to, I don't tolerate no disrespect. I don't tolerate none of that. Like, you'll be fighting people all day. So again, it's balance. You don't want to be fighting everybody, but you also don't want to let everything slide. And you don't want to be afraid of the possible threat of violence. And that's what I think a lot of young boys have, is a fear of the possible threat of violence. And once they feel that possible threat, they go grab the guns. And that's coward behavior. It's weak. And we do need to normalize the fade. We do. I like it. I think it's a whole movement happening. And I want to thank Aaron the plumber for standing on who he is and not moving in fear. This man was a plumber. He didn't even seek out the Pop the Balloon show where he got famous. He told the story of how he ended up on there. And it was actually one of his friends from way back that offered him an opportunity. He didn't even want to be on the show. So I think he's a great example of a person just being who they are, not forcing anything in the universe, not trying to be famous, not trying to do none of that. And he stands in who he is, and who he is just happened to be very intriguing, and he's embracing the moment. It's lessons in his story, and I love his story.